back and give you our gut reactions on all things pop culture, film, TV, and theatre. We talk to legends in the creative industry and those on the rise. We game old school. We do all this and a whole lot more. Like, subscribe, get involved. Join Larkstein, Anthony Nielsen, and the Outcast Creative.
Damn, that full-barrel name of mine just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Oh, my God. As you can tell from the fact that I'm wearing two hoodies and have got my hood up, it is freezing here right now. As I've just had a seasonally adjusted figure gas bill, which I'm contesting, by the way, for a mere £830 for months that I've already paid, apart from anything. Yeah, as you can appreciate, I'm not really willing to put the heating on right now. Now, caveat at the beginning of this episode, just so you know, I am doing a longer stream, a more intense, detailed stream about The Crown this Saturday, I think around 10. Now, I should be being joined by Getting Nerds shortly. He's having some tech issues, but he's trying to get on. So we'll see if we get him on. So I'm going to give. I've just binged all 4 episodes of season 6, and I'll say a few things about it. But I am going to talk more about it on Saturday. So if you want a longer episode, I'm doing a sort of not just season 6, but I'm going to talk about The Crown as a show, and then I'm going to be doing another in detailed review of the last 4. I'll do a gut reaction on the last 4 episodes, and then there'll be a second follow-up detailed episode. So no less than 4 streams on The Crown. Why? Well, I think it's earned it. It's one of the best well-cast television historical drama series possibly ever made. It's certainly one of the best, and I mean, it's up there. It's up there with the top leagues. You know, it's, if you're going to put top 5 historical shows, I would say that Band of Brothers, the Crown are definitely both in that top 5. But how are the first 4 episodes of season 6? Well, for the most part, pretty good. And we're into very sensitive territory, and I'm going to talk more about this on Saturday. But this is an event that I remember very well. All of the era surrounding the controversy with Diana, who she was dating, the constant interest of the tabloids. And, you know, listen, the majority of us didn't really care who she was dating. So she was handed by the press, as we know. Getting Nerds has arrived. Tim, here he is.
Hey.
Just in the nick of time. So how can you only be wearing a T-shirt when I have my Russian front winter clothing? It's so cold here.
Yeah. Now, new extension, lots of insulation. No heating. Trust me.
Blimey, yeah, because just can't afford to put it on these days. Well, I've only just started. I'm just saying I am going to do a more in-depth review on Saturday with a couple of other guests. You're welcome to come back on that if you're bored.
Yeah.
But this is more my initial reaction to episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. Have you seen all 4 of them?
I have not. I've only seen the first one. I managed to get that one in. I'm currently editing my review of that. So I've looked at it in a bit of depth, but no, I'm one at a time. Otherwise, I get lost. And I tried to do 2, but I didn't have the time, sadly.
I had an interview this afternoon with actor, producer, director, cinematographer / everything else, Sean Cronin, which was a lot of fun. He was quite blunt about a lot of industry things, which was very entertaining. But I managed to fit 2 episodes in before that and 2 afterwards.
Amazing.
Episode 4 is an absolute killer. Were you? I forget whether you're a Londoner or not, but were you in London for the funeral of Diana?
I was not. Well, I was young. I think I was. When? What year was it?
I can tell you it was the year that I moved back to London. I'm pretty sure it was 97.
97. So I'd have been 13. So no, sadly, I was on. I live on the south coast, so I watched it on. I remember watching it on a massive CRT TV in the pub. I think.
What the funeral?
Yeah, I think I went down there with my dad and watched the funeral.
Yeah, because it was. I'll never forget it. I was in London, but I was living in Nottingham at the time. But I'd already had plans to move back to London, and I mean this time is fairly vague for me. But I do remember the events. I was staying at a friend's. We had gone out, God knows where. We came in. It was very late, and switched on the TV just to kind of see what was on before I crashed out on his sofa, and just saw her face come up, like a portrait shot.
Yeah.
And at that time, it had been announced about the car crash. So we must have just got back just as the story broke. It wasn't confirmed that she was killed, and then we were like, shit. So then we were just sort of glued to the TV set, and I can't remember us. I think we must have been glued to that TV set till like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And then the next day we went up to Buckingham Palace, and the woman at the flower shop we went to wouldn't take any money off me for the flowers. She
nice.
said she just said, well, she probably wasn't able to say that much longer because most flower places ran out, I think. But
yeah,
she just said, I can't take it. Because I said, I said, well, I only had I had a silly amount of money. It was like I only had like a £5 or something.
Yeah.
Said, I'm going to take these up to Buckingham Palace. What can you give me for a £5? And it was when I put mine there was only 2 small piles, and I came back a bit later, and one pile was much bigger than the other one, and I thought I'd put it in the wrong place. So I went back in to get my flowers, pulled them up, took them out in front of all these people, went over to the bigger one and put them back in there, and they must have thought, that guy's stealing flowers, what's he doing? But they were mine. Yeah, and then I came back in the evening, and it just smelled like the scent of all the. That was so pungent,
Yeah.
There's some things I felt that they should have included that they didn't, but then probably I think what they didn't want to do is they didn't want to repeat a lot of stuff from the Queen.
Yeah. I think that's possibly right. You'll see in my review that comes out in a few hours. I was underwhelmed by the first episode. I thought it would. I don't think they treated it necessarily with the respect that it deserves, given what happened.
The first episode focuses on her and Dodie fired meeting.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm assuming that we are spoiler.
Yeah, I mean,
spoiler central here.
It's a gut reaction review, but we can, I mean, overall, I'm for the most part, I'm impressed with these 4 episodes. I've got a few grievances, but for the most part, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I think for me, the first episode I thought was really good, other than the first 10 minutes. The first 10 minutes really upset me in a way that put me off for the rest of the episode. And I don't know why they did it necessarily, other than I think that they must have had a reason. So
what happened in the first 10 minutes? I'm trying to remember.
The first 10 minutes, they open on the crash.
Oh, shit. Of course they do. And then it flashes back to 8 weeks earlier.
But there's no need to do that. Anyone that's watching The Crown knows what happened. There's no need to do that. It doesn't add any value other than it just gives you a gut punch that you don't need at that time. I really disliked that. I thought that was really...
Yeah, but you don't really see it, though.
No, I know that. But if anything, that's worse because you don't see who's in it. All you see is a Frenchman walking along and then there's a crash.
His dog. Yeah.
But if you're thinking about the story of Diana, that piece adds no value because you've not seen what led up to it yet. All you're seeing is an 8 weeks earlier, which it feels like a mechanic that's been used. It's like they saw an episode of Fringe or something like that, and then they thought, oh, we'll do that with that 8 weeks earlier thing.
I did. You're right. It didn't really feel it needed. I mean, there's not a lot of hard hitting drama in the first episode apart from that.
No, well, there's that, and there's
maybe that's why
the Queen, who... See, I have an issue with the Queen because she's the same actress that played Dolores Umbridge, so I see her as Dolores Umbridge.
You're talking about Imelda Staunton.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I never remember her name. But
Mike over here.
The way that she behaves towards Charles when he first arrives, I found distasteful. I don't think that that's how the Queen would treat him. I don't think that that's how it would have gone. I think that it's all made up. And I think that that's a bit, given the 180 she makes within the episode, I found that it felt more Dolores Umbridge than it felt the Queen.
Right, interesting.
And I just didn't like it. But again, after that 10 minutes, it picked up.
I mean, I've got to disagree with you there. I really like that scene.
Really?
For me, that was two powerhouse actors inhabiting their roles, creating the tensions that I felt existed within that family. Bearing in mind what I know now of the various things that have come out since. If I'd seen it at the time, I probably wouldn't have believed it, but I can certainly believe it now. There's another scene, I think, in the following episode, because a lot of it revolves around Camilla's 50th birthday party, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And Charles is trying to get the Queen to attend the 50th. She doesn't want to because she's going to the Rolls-Royce factory, but she also doesn't want to give visible approval because the royal family's not supposed to approve divorce.
Yeah.
He did have a difficult relationship with his parents, Charles. That's well known. You got a dog scampering about?
She's just scratching. She's finished now.
Ah, very good. So I mean, and also it's a drama, and I think
I do understand that, but I think that the way that given we've had 6 series of the Queen, by this point, or 5 series plus this one,
6 seasons.
Well, this is the 6th, but up to this first 10 minutes of this episode, we've had 5 series of the Queen. She doesn't behave like that in any of them, not really, not to the point where it feels. I don't know.
Wasn't Imelda Staunton playing her last season?
Yeah, she was, but she didn't behave like that. It was too cruel. It felt really cruel to me, and it wasn't what she was or what she's been up to that point. If you took it just as if it was Game of Thrones and it was just a fiction, and we didn't know anything about the actual history of the people, and it was just a fiction drama, it was out of character for her in the series.
I'm going to slightly disagree with you. I think
by all means,
I get completely where you're coming from, and I respect that. That's your view. I think what's happened in the last season and in this one, the marriage falling apart and stuff, she's become quite entrenched, and people do that when they get older. I'm doing it now with some of the filmmakers I'm meeting and things. Why are you doing it like that? So you can get quite entrenched in your views. Some people would call an attitude old-fashioned, and there was a lot about her that was old-fashioned. There was a lot about her that was reserved, And it's
I
difficult
guess
to know how much of that was played at home as well as in public, you know.
True. I guess my thing with the whole episode front to end, and again we're just focusing on the first one, is that by the end of it, she's the one talking to what's his name?
Talking to her husband.
To her husband, saying, well, you know, we should modernize and we should embrace this. And it just felt like such a fast turn for no, you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's the conversation between her and Jonathan Pryce where she says, maybe we should.
Yeah, but if she's so entrenched that she is so cruel to Charles earlier on.
The shift feels a bit.
I think basically what I'm saying is that first episode should have been 3 episodes. And it should have been a lot more paced out. They should have explained her change of thinking a lot more. Basically, what happened was she had a conversation with Charles where she was miserable. She had a phone call with her sister, and then she was nice. And it just felt like that was it felt like a car crash. You know, it was so fast of a change for someone that's supposed to be so entrenched.
Yeah.
There was no room there for character development other than she had a phone call and then all of a sudden all of her mind's changed and she's convincing her husband, who I can't remember his name.
Jonathan Pryce, he's effectively the Prince of Wales, I think is the
but what's his what was the guy's name? Prince
Philip.
Thank you, Philip. Yeah. She's trying to convince Philip by the end, but it's all that's happened in 24 hours. Because he said that could you come to the party the day before, and then or a couple of days before, and then call it 36 hours. She's completely done a 180 on the whole thing. But
how
I didn't get that at all. I just think it was rushed.
I hear you, and I think that's a fair point. How do you feel about the performances of our 3 people in the picture here? We have Prince Harry, Diana, of course, and Prince William.
I thought they
nearly said Prince Andrew then. I didn't.
Yeah, not in this one. I thought they were really good actually. I
agree.
All of my reviews, I do 5 good, 5 bad. 5 good points, 5 bad points, and both of those actually hit on my 5 good points. I think the boys actually did an amazing job. I think they really got the characters. Yeah. I don't know the names. I haven't had a chance to look it up.
I'm looking them up now.
But they did it really well.
Yeah, they were. I mean, I really liked them. I thought they were. I mean, you know, bless him. The actor playing Harry didn't have a huge amount to do, but when you watch him, I mean, what a great job. You know, hey guys, by the way, we're going down to. It clearly is the south of France that they filmed in.
Yeah, I thought the Med sort of area. Yeah.
It's either south of France or Spain. It's you know. Whatever, it's a nice location for an actor to so what you've got to do is in this job you're going to have to go on a cruise ship and, you know, jump in the water and have fun with water guns and stuff.
Well, it wasn't that piece. I mean, the piece of it that really stuck with me actually was the bit on the private jet where they were just being a family.
Oh no, I really like that scene where he keeps playing with the window,
and then Diana hits him with the pillow, and it felt really natural. It's probably the most natural acting in that first episode, where they felt like they were just a family, X of all of the pomp and circumstance. They were just being a family together.
Yeah,
and I have other criticisms of the episode, but that piece I thought was actually really, really nice. That's one of 2 pieces in that episode that I thought was really nice.
I really like that scene. Yeah, that was a good scene. I'm still trying to find the name. The cast list is so bloody long on. Don't know. No, I don't think that's him. Oh, maybe it is. Let's have a look. Yes. So the actor on the left, I believe, is Flynn Edwards. Because he's down for 4 episodes on 2023. I think they might be both being replaced by older actors for the next 4.
It'd have to be a hell of a jump.
Yeah, Rufus Camper plays the other one. So plays Prince William. They're both good. Yeah, they are both
Yeah,
good.
they fitted the part really well. I mean,
Yeah.
they've sort of got. Well, I can remember William from because he's about the same age as me. So from when I was young, and he plays that part really well. Actually,
I
think he
really
does a good job
liked
at it.
Khalid Abdullah in as Dodie. I think he's a very good
Yes,
actor, just full
yes,
stop anyway.
he was really good. I was less enthusiastic about the father,
Um,
but yeah,
yeah, I mean, if you watch when you've seen the other episodes, you may
Hmm.
change your mind.
I think again the problem I have with this episode is that it's one episode that should have been full. I think they tried to
Right.
rush a lot of it in, and by
Yeah,
doing that, they made Dodi, not Dodi, Mohammed Al Fayed into like a Mr. Burns.
we're right.
You know what I mean? It was like so
Yeah, yeah.
fast, and it was because of that they had to make him all conspiratorial, like he worked for Mossad or the CIA, and he was just trying
Right.
to, you know what I mean? It was so fast rather than allowing that to play out over even 2 hours would have given him more chance to have a bit of what do you call it, a bit of character development around that piece.
Yeah, a bit more
But
nuance.
yeah, I just it felt
Oh,
like this. I think
take that
for
down.
me, the problem that I've had is because I've watched 5 episodes of The Crown, and it's all been very slow and build and character development all the way along. And this one just felt like they threw Mohammed Al Fayed in there, and he was already a miserable git trying to set his son up and forcing his son to get
But
with
he
this
he he
woman.
first appears in the previous season.
Yeah. But I mean, in this particular style of role, where
Right.
he's doing like a what do you call it, a matchmaker, but
Yeah,
forced and
yeah,
overnight, and
yeah.
you fall in love with that woman, and it's like that's the extent of his role, and it's like
But
that
the
just felt really weird, and I don't think that any human being's ever been like that in all of history. I mean,
well,
maybe, but
I don't know about that. I've witnessed quite a few strange human beings in my time.
me too, but
I
not like
mean,
that.
you've got to. One of the things that interested me, and I did do a bit of fact checking on this,
Hmm.
is I didn't realise. I had it in my head that Diana and Dodie had been seeing each other for a much longer period than they
Hmm.
actually had.
Yeah,
And the reality is that they had a whirlwind romance over a period of 8 weeks.
yeah,
And, until 8 weeks earlier, prior to her death, they hadn't met properly.
no,
So, I mean, they were aware of each other, but they hadn't met properly. They hadn't spent any time together properly. He was engaged to somebody else. There was a
Mhm.
lot of all of that stuff that wasn't clear to me. And,
Yeah. I
and
mean, me too. I mean, I knew some more of that. I think I knew that it was only a couple of months, maybe
but
two or
I
three
think it
months.
was. I think Dodi and sorry, Mohammed Al Fayed,
Hmm.
or Mumu as he was affectionately called by some. Um, I think in some ways he's hammed up the wrong way, but in other ways they play him really well. There's a
Hmm.
mixed bag of him coming. I do think that the agenda that he has in the show is probably depicted in a fairly realistic fashion because
Hmm.
it's known that there was pressure on them to get engaged. It's really, I don't want to say it now because we're mainly focusing on the first episode here, and it is a gut reaction. But
No, you jump backwards and forwards. It's fine. Honestly,
I
I
don't want to
can't.
get into.
It's a
I'm
real
gonna.
story,
I
so
don't want to get into big spoilers, but the way that they handle were they getting engaged or weren't they getting
hmm.
engaged is really well done, and
Okay.
it kind of is done in a way where they're quite nice to um, Al Fayed, that they kind of let him off in a way, so that he believes that the couple were getting engaged, but that's not necessarily what was happening. And I think it's really interesting the way it's played. And there's a crucial phone call that takes place
Hmm.
between Diana and her sons, where the sons ask her, "Are you going to marry him?" And I'm pretty sure that the creator of this show would not have put that phone call in if it didn't happen.
It's hard to tell, isn't it? Because I don't know how much.
He's pretty close with his sources.
Yeah, I don't know how much. Well, I mean,
but
when you say close, you've got a phone call between a mother and her kid. I don't imagine William telling that phone call happened. So I think the problem this show's got is by trying to get too close to now. Is that you've got people that are alive and
it's wrapping up at the end of this season, but I guarantee you, once appropriate time has passed, even though they've said it's the last season, once appropriate time has passed, we'll be getting either another show about the royals as they are now, or all the stuff that's happened in the last couple of years. But
if they don't do a show about Harry and Meghan, it'll be a crying shame.
Of course, I mean, that's the season of The Crown that everyone's waiting to watch, you know.
I guess the problem is we've seen it all. You know, we've read every book. We've seen all the documentaries. They've sort of they've jumped the shark. You know,
yeah.
You couldn't make it any more dramatic than they've actually made it.
Well, I'm pretty sure fans of The Crown would want to see it. I know.
Again, that's probably true, but I think that nothing would be a surprise. You know, there's nothing you could dig out in the background.
No, probably not. But it's like anything, isn't it? You when stories are exploding in the press, you read the headlines, you click on the links that you click onto, you read that stuff, and then you move on. There are very few people that sit down very objectively, and I'm one of them. But I know most of my friends don't do this. And go, actually, I want to find out everything there is to know about that subject, because at the end of the day, you don't have time. That's why people buy newspapers, to have a quick read and move on. So what happens is when a show does this kind of level of detail, what you get is multiple perspectives and different nuggets of information that you haven't heard about before. Of course, we don't know which one's a fact and which one's a fiction when it's a drama, historic drama documentary, effectively. But, you know, I'd still like to see it, because
me too.
I'm sure there would be things I would learn that I didn't know about. Now, this still here would be from one of the episodes that hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, I imagine they jumped forward 10 years, don't they? Or 8 years.
I don't know. I think it's now. That's not the same actor, is it? Playing William. Right. So that's a different actor. So that's going to be there was a little trailer for episodes 5, 6, and 7 and 8, and it was really the focus of kind of William dating. So I guess that's what it's going to be him meeting Kate, I suppose. And I'm curious to know kind of where it will finish, because for me, the ultimate end of the show really was always going to be the death of the Queen.
Yeah, but they won't go that far. I mean, William.
Well, not now, not in this current day and time.
No,
because if this show had been made in 1950, in the 50s, they wouldn't have shown the death of the king either.
No,
but you know, it all just depends on when. So you know,
I mean, so William and Kate met in 2001. So it's whether they go to their wedding,
which was about 10 years later.
Maybe, yeah.
Don't know when they got married. But yeah, it's interesting. Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we? I mean, they'll definitely go up to the early 2000s. Maybe the season will end with him getting engaged. Maybe it'll end with their wedding.
Yeah,
it might be quite nice if it ends with their wedding, because that'd be sort of quite a high note.
Yeah, or Charles's wedding even.
That would be nice. Oh yeah. Talking of which, we must talk about Dominic West.
Yeah.
So far of all the people who's played Charles, he's my favourite, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely.
Yeah.
I think his speech in that first episode where he was talking at her birthday party, was really heartwarming, actually, and he did it. Yeah. He did Charles better than I've ever seen anyone do Charles in that moment.
He did Charles better than Charles, I think.
Well, maybe, but I think that seeing that party scene and seeing him, he played it how you imagine it would be. He's a person that's not enjoyed his life up
Yeah,
until this point,
yeah,
and now he can actually enjoy his life out in the open.
yeah.
And
That was a really good.
it came across like that. You could read
Yeah.
about 10 years worth of, or 20 years worth of stuff into that one like smile where they're at the party, and it's like that's how you know you've got a good actor on your hands.
Because that's what causes the aunt, who of course is played by the excellent Leslie Manville, to call up her sister and said, "Oh, there was something different about Charles. He was happy," and in some ways, that's a happiness that the Queen herself hasn't really ever been able to have since they were forced to leave Malta way back when Matt Smith was playing her husband. And I think there was a lot of great stuff going on certain lines. I'm sure you picked up on this. On certain lines, Leslie Manville's character gave a look, and she does that again in another episode, and it's all to do with her not being able to marry the person she loved at the time. So she's been through what he went through. That's why she understands, and she sympathizes with him, and she's pleased for him because she knows it's very difficult to get that happiness. Well, for me, these 4 episodes collectively, I mean, I could rate them individually, but episode 4 is definitely not going to talk too much about that now.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I want to do it. I'm doing a longer episode on Saturday, so I don't want to do too much repetition. And like I said, if you want to jump back on that, you can.
Yeah, I'll have watched them all by then, I think.
Yeah, but episode 4 for me is very strong. I have one issue with it, which I will mention, but that's the strongest of the 4. It's really about the meat of these 4 episodes. Really is on the one narrative strand. It's Dodie and Diana being sort of forced into this relationship that may work or may not, and maybe in the future could work, but maybe not right now. And then the other narrative is really about the palace and them reacting to Diana's antics and the conflict that causes. That alone isn't particularly gripping, but because we all know what's coming, it doesn't. It's a build up, so it doesn't need to be. And we need to establish Dodie a bit more, and see how far their relationship got. And it's every time I see a scene with them on their own, I'm always asking myself in my head, I wonder if this really happened, this conversation.
Exactly that, yeah.
And I think
nobody could know.
No, right. But I think 75% of the time, I feel they probably got it right.
They probably got it as close to right as you can get it.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have stenographers, so these are private conversations they would have had. No one was recording them, so there's no way to know. But I think if it went off the way that I guess there's a thing. It's like what do you call it? Like a beautiful fiction. It's like that's how you want it to have gone if it went that way.
Yeah, I hear what I mean. Yeah,
I don't think it necessarily did. They probably had very different conversations. They were in very awkward situations, the both of them. But if it went this way, I'm happy for that to be the fiction that lives.
Well, when you see the other conversations that take place and knowing what we know that was going on at the time,
sure.
If I was tackling this topic as a scriptwriter, it would be pretty simple. I would have a column, one side, facts that are known, and the timeline of where these people went and what they did and what happened around them at that time.
Yeah.
Which means that, if a man gets a pie thrown in his face in the morning, and I'm distilling this to simple terms, and he meets his friends in the afternoon, there's going to be a scene in the afternoon where he talks to his friends about the fact that he got a pie thrown in his face in the morning, unless he's got reasons not to tell his friends that, which might also be another scene. So I feel like there wasn't a scene where I went, oh, I bet that didn't happen. I bet that didn't happen.
Well, that's good.
So there is a scene with William going out and hunting and killing a stag, and the night before the car crash. I feel like that may well be a fact that I'm unaware of. It felt very filmic, so if I found it was a device, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem. I guess it's the problem with it coming up so close to being up to date, is that we've got that juxtaposition of what we know versus what we, neither of us can remember the 1960s, 70s, 80s, early 80s of what the Royals were doing. As soon as you get into the early 2000s, it's too close in memory, where you're trying to place what your real memory is on top of what they're trying to do dramatically. And
yeah, that's what you mean. I vaguely remember what they were doing in the 80s because we had street parties and this kind of thing.
I know, but the day-to-day of it, not the year-to-year of it necessarily, but the day-to-day of it. You wouldn't necessarily remember every story you saw on the front of the Mail or that kind of thing from 30 years ago. But from now, it's when you're getting into 2000, 2001, up to 2010 when they get engaged or married, or 2011 they get married. It just feels too close to be telling a radically dramatized story.
Yeah, or indeed maybe one that's even objective.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the problems I had with so there was a couple of films that came out in about 2005-06, which were of the Twin Towers.
Oh yeah, there was the Oliver Stone one.
Yeah, and the Nicolas Cage one. I can't remember.
I think the Oliver Stone one was the one with Nicolas Cage.
Was it? Okay, sorry, I get them mixed up. Which there was two,
and then
one after the other.
Well, you had one about the plane.
Yeah, Flight 93.
I thought
that was the Stone one.
I think no. The Oliver Stone one was the one with the actual towers in it, with Nicolas Cage as the firefighter and the Mexican actor who also was the other guy who was freed. I forget that actor's name. Very good actor.
I think that the problem with those was the same problem I'm having with The Crown, is that it was too close to the events.
Yeah, the problem I had with it wasn't the film that I thought Stone was going to give us. What we got was men trapped under rubble for 2 hours, and one of them saw Jesus.
Well,
and
yeah,
I really wanted to. I mean, I'm not saying that didn't happen. It wasn't what I wanted from my cinema. I kind of wanted to see all the ordinary people doing everything they could to dig them out, and I didn't feel like there was enough of that.
I agree. I wanted. Did you ever see the Tommy Lee Jones film Volcano?
I did. I saw that in Leicester Square, tragically and instantly forgotten.
You see, the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes of that film is what I wanted to see as the Twin Towers movie, where they are
volcano exploding in Los Angeles.
No, but all of the police, fire department coming together, moving things around, trying to save these people.
Oh right, yeah. No, that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the
last 20 minutes of that film. Ignore the rest of it. The last 20 minutes of that film, of the volcano film. If you get a chance, go back and watch it. You'll see what I mean.
No, I've seen it pretty recently, actually.
Yeah, it's just, if you put that into a Twin Towers scenario of, we've got men under here, we're going to get them out, we're going to move, we're going to get bulldozers in and move this rubble and tension and stuff like that. That's what I wanted from that Twin Towers movie that never came.
Right.
I think that there was so much they could have done with it that they didn't. But I think also being too close to the event meant that they were too careful. They had to be really careful with it. Whereas 30 years later, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter as much if you were somewhat more fast and loose with the facts of the day.
Yeah.
But you've got to be so careful when you're this close.
I thought Flight 93 was a very good film.
It was, but it's one of those things. Flight 93 is one where there's no information. Or, it's minor information that we have on what actually happened on that plane.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a certain type of film. It's a window box, it's a telescope narrative, and
of course it is. Yeah,
you've really just got the people on the plane, and then also the ground control people who, by the way, were played by all the real people.
Yeah. That was a fantastic film. The other one,
Paul Greengrass.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The other one, the other flight film that I've seen recently, the Tom Hanks one.
Oh, that was the one about
Sully.
Yeah, Sully. Yeah,
that's a serious film. I really enjoyed that. Actually, I only watched that a couple of months ago.
It was a good movie. I disliked the disjointed narrative a little bit. That got on my tits.
It felt like they were trying to jump backwards and forwards too much.
Yeah, I was like, come on, who's directing this? Christopher Nolan, please.
Yeah. Well, they did what they did at the beginning of this episode to me, which is they put it out of sequence for no reason.
Right.
You know, if it had a good narrative purpose, it would make sense.
Right.
Like putting that crash at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah.
Served no purpose other than to just punch you in the stomach and then let you enjoy a bit of a love story.
It ties into where you'll see it's weak, but I see why they did it. It ties into a message that they're trying to set up in episode 4. But the link is, we can discuss it on Saturday. The link is very tenuous, very tenuous. So it's to do with the French perspective, and I think they're trying to show the French man on the street kind of thing, and then suddenly the way the French people were coming out, and it was a sign of things to come, But
sure,
I get it. It was unnecessary. It was unnecessary.
I guess because I've only watched the one. The problem with dropping them as 4s is that you've got to binge them to get the context.
Right.
I think it's the same reason I don't like them. I don't like the binge model in general, because especially when you do reviews like this, it's actually really hard to do episode by episode. Whereas if you do because when they drop them as they know they're going to drop a 4, they make one narrative that plays across all 4. Whereas like a 2005 CBS show would have a narrative in an episode. Or like a Lucifer, for example, it had a story that was enclosed in an episode, and then it still had an overarching.
But that's
X-Files, go back 30 years.
Yeah, Star Trek: Next Generation, same.
Yeah, but because they drop these as 4s, and then with like The Witcher, they drop 15 at once or whatever it is. It makes it really hard to review them because then nothing. There are some episodes where just nothing happens other than you're setting up for a bunch of things that are about to happen.
Yeah, I've found that is an issue, but then that's reflective also of a drop in a quality of good writing. And
yes, although there was an interview with Az Heel versus Babyface and Paul Chato. And they were talking because Chato was a network producer,
right?
And it was a couple of days ago. It's worth a watch if you get a chance. Anyone who's listening, and he was talking about it, and he said they used to have he used to work for NBC. They would always make sure that the writers knew that they had to write an enclosed A or B plot for the episode, so that at the end of every episode, the person watching felt some level of closure before moving into the next. Yeah,
it's the standard 5-act script format.
Yeah, but we don't have. But the problem we've got now is with the big drops. So the big, let's call it 5-episode series. Is you have that 5 acts but spread over 5 episodes. So there are 2 episodes in the middle where nothing actually happens, and it's completely unsatisfying if you watch them individually. But they want you to watch them all at once, so it's like a 7-hour story, a 7-hour movie. And that sort of approach to writing is very evident in the recent Star Wars TV spin-offs. No kidding.
Which for the most part are pants, sadly. Yes. And I'm a big Star Wars guy. I've got my Lego Death Star is right here. Here it is. I'm very upset about.
I love all that stuff. I really do. I just think that they are.
Yeah.
They're missing a trick by not giving the customer closure per episode.
Yeah. No, I hear exactly what you're saying. So, let me tell you about the issue I have with. I was expecting a couple of things that I didn't feel were picked up on enough. And I was thinking, I wonder if they'll cover that in the Queen, that I thought that they maybe have the chance to do them here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you see it once in the Queen, but that's not what happened because we were all there at the front row
Mm-hmm.
when the gun carriage went past with her body, and it was it was a surreal experience. It was kind of, you knew you were part of history, and you had a front row seat, and it was, you wanted to be there, but you felt bad for being there at the same time, because you there was part of you that couldn't help but feel vulture-ish.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you were a royalist, which I am, I wanted to be there. And in particular, Diana was involved in charities that, if it wasn't for some of her work, I think certain friends of mine wouldn't be alive. So, so I was absolutely no question I was going to be there. I came back down to London, especially. I wasn't even living in London that summer. But so we all ended up in Hyde Park, where there was a series of massive television screens. And, the service proceeded and various things happened. And, we were all very tearful. And then it came to her brother doing his speech. And the brother's speech was so good. I remember that in the Queen, in the portrayal of the Queen, they cut at one point from the actual footage of the speech to everybody in Hyde Park all standing up and doing a standing ovation. But that's not the full picture of what happened in Hyde Park. There were 7 standing ovations, each at different points that he made, where everyone got up. And the fact that they all got up on all of those 7 points, there was only one person that mentioned that on one of the news programs. It was largely glossed over. And I was hoping they were going to kind of pick up on that somehow. And I thought that there's a weird introduction to the next episode with two photographer characters who have a completely different approach to their line of work, as you'll see. And I thought maybe we might see that perspective through a character like that, who is just your ordinary person. And they've done stuff like that with The Crown before, so it wouldn't be too off base. But we didn't get that. We sadly, and I felt that's an important moment in history that's kind of been a bit lost. Everybody that was there knows about it, and that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But episode 4 on the whole, though, is handled really, really well. And I mean, Dominic should get a BAFTA for his performance.
Yeah, I think he probably will. I'm looking forward to it. I want to see what happens. Again, I feel like I'm being overly critical of it, but only because I think the previous series have been so good. I've not seen a ham-fisted job of it done quite so much as in this first episode. Again,
yeah, I think your point about certain things being rushed and forced quite quickly is a fair criticism for all 4 of these episodes.
It just feels like unnecessary. They could have done 8 episodes and just made it better.
Yeah, and I accept that. It does feel a bit like we're getting into Game of Thrones. People want to rush to see this finished.
Yeah.
Territory. I accept that they don't want to repeat. It's the same team that made the Queen, so they don't want to be shooting the scene again with Tony Blair and the Queen meeting.
I don't know. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. The Queen was a 10-year-old film now, and it doesn't seem necessary to avoid parts of this story. If you're going to sell this as a box set, there's no point avoiding parts of the story just because you've done it before.
I have to say I agree, and I am surprised that there were a couple of scenes that they didn't double up on. I think one of them was Blair meeting the Queen, and that you do get sort of snippets of that.
Yeah. Well, I must admit that in this episode, certainly the Blairs, I I found them entirely unbelievable. I don't know if maybe there's something going on with the actors that play the Blairs.
I mean, they're fine, but the problem is we've had better actors play them.
Yeah, that's true. I'd say that the beginning of this one, I said in my review, I think that the Blairs were acting like voiceover actors that were never in the same room.
Was that one of your 5 bad points?
It was, yeah.
What were your other 4 bad points? I'm curious to know.
I've got my list.
Produce the list. I feel like there should be a drum roll for that.
So my other 4 bad points.
Release the secret weapon. Sorry, that's from Basil the Great Mouse Detective. Right, okay.
Yeah, I know it. I thought the clingy, jealous fiance was overplayed and just cartoonish, to the point of being silly.
Because she was a nothing character, I feel that this season could have benefited from just not having her in at all. She could have been referred to. She could have been a voice on the end of the phone.
Yeah, she just seemed like it felt like a Hallmark movie where it had to be extra dramatic. You know, it was like it was all on. It's as if she was on stage rather than in a TV show.
I think they wanted to. I think the only reason that the Fireheads don't come out of this very well, right?
Well, they don't come out of the whole actual story very well, to be honest.
No, I think Charles comes out of it very well, but I don't think that the Fireheads come out of it very well, and I think that's a little bit unfair. And I feel like that the only reason that character was in it was simply to show that Dodie had one last shag with her before he sent her on his way.
Yep.
That's and that reflects very poorly on him. It's like
it does.
Yeah, I'll spend one more night
on her, and it doesn't. It just feels like mean for no reason.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure she probably was a gold digger, but you know.
Oh well, maybe, but even so, there's no need. I think there's choices you could make as a filmmaker, and you don't have to be mean, especially to someone who's still around.
Yeah,
you know, you can make choices that would make that less egregious.
Yeah,
I don't think it's. I just some things you just think aren't necessary. You know, if you were going to make
I didn't think her character should have been included. I
agree with that. So my 5 points were the Queen having sort of whiplash within like 24 hours was my one, because I think that was just a really weird story crunch that I didn't get. Fiance Fayed being Mr. Burns for no apparent reason.
Right.
It was both slower and faster. Like, it told the story slower, but it tried to force bits into 3-minute segments.
Yeah.
It's just a weird type pacing thing. And the Tony and Cherie Blair thing. That was my 5.
I noticed that the length of these episodes has varied considerably from anything from what I recall from other seasons, from 38 minutes up to like 62 on some of them. Most of these episodes are around the 40 to 43 minute mark.
And almost like they're editing for television, eh?
Oh man, I mean, I got to tell you, they go too quick. I felt like they should have had more scenes.
Yeah, they needed some extra padding. It's the same. Actually, it's exactly the same problem I had with the Marvels.
It
felt like they needed more.
No, we don't talk about the Marvels on this channel.
Yeah. The Marvels was actually not as bad as everyone makes it out to be, and I will back that up. But
I mean, let me rephrase it. We don't talk about Marvel on this channel at all.
Fair enough.
I'm just not interested in superhero shit.
Fair enough.
I don't do superhero shit on the Outcast channel.
That works for me. But yeah, it is the same problem they had with the film we will not mention, is that they cut out all of the character piece,
right,
to try and do action and
I was going to say that they filled it with lots of action, did they? Lots of CGI.
Lots of CGI, lots of crap where it didn't need it, and actually just having a bit of character. 2 people talking to each other can be more beneficial to a story than a massive intergalactic fight. And the same problem here. Sometimes you just the bit with the piano was probably the best piece of this, where They was just two people talking, and it was
That was
actually touching.
That was a beautifully played
Yeah.
scene,
It was
and I
executed
like.
perfectly, and it
There's
just
a
needed.
moment. There's a moment just after that where Dodie
Mm.
looks at her playing with the kids, and
Mm.
and the actor just does a look, and in that look he says, "Actually, I think I could love this woman." That's what
Yeah,
happens in that
I think
scene.
there's
Really
a
well
lot going
played.
on behind the eyes with a
Yeah.
lot
Oh
of the
yeah.
characters,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
problem I'm having with the Queen actress, whose name I can never remember, and
Imelda Staunton,
Imelda Staunton, and the Philip character is
Jonathan
if
Pryce.
if they'd filled in. So it was a 40-odd minute episode. If they'd done a extra 10 minutes of them interspersed, creating some sort of arc for the Queen to go from where she was to where she landed, it would have worked. But they just didn't do it, and there was
Yeah,
no reason not to.
I think that's a very fair criticism of the episode. She's played in episode 1 certainly, and I'm afraid to tell you, throughout most of the 4 episodes, she's played very much on one level: mean,
Yeah.
stoic, reserved, and so on. I do feel
That's fine if that's her character, but I think that
yeah,
the fact that she went, I think the whiplash from it, if you've got a character that's stoic and, like granite, they don't change, they just are what they are, and that's what the crown does to you, that's fine. But then within 36 hours, she went from that, with one phone call to her sister, to being warm and accepting of Charles
right,
and Camilla.
yeah.
Either you have it one way or the other.
Well,
And if you're going to make that arc, you need to make that more apparent than a single phone call.
Didn't she just sort of call Charles and say,
I'm glad you had, but
I hear it went well. I'm glad you're
whatnot,
happy. She didn't say, I approve of your.
no, but it was close enough. You knew
Yeah.
you could tell the subtext of all of that. There was no reason for her to phone.
I mean, my issue is less with that phone call scene and more that there weren't other scenes that like, okay, I'll give an example. So I can't remember if it's last season or the season before. I think it was last season. You have that great scene where no, it might have been the season before, where Thatcher comes up and visits, played by Gillian Anderson, doing a great Thatcher, and they think they're coming down dressed for a formal dinner, and actually, at that moment in time, the family are playing parlor games, and Thatcher's like, "What am I doing with these people? I need to get back to London," and she just won't Thatcher won't let her hair down, and you can imagine Thatcher being completely like that. But those scenes were great at showing that the Queen had a bit of a sense of humour, and also was up for a laugh. And I like the fact that Helen Mirren's portrayal of her showed that even though she was making some wrong decisions in terms of not being the mother for the country when required, she did have great warmth and humanity. She just wasn't allowed to show it very often. So I feel there's room to show in the scenes behind the scenes, if you like.
Yeah, just a bit of a break, just something, just to give her some humanity. I think the problem is she went from no humanity to loads in like 12 hours, and I think that was just too much of a change for me.
Yeah,
given the context of what was happening. If it's something that you massively believe in to the point where you're going to dismiss and completely ignore your son at point A, to get to point B, a lot has to happen.
Yeah,
and nothing happened other than a phone call.
Well, the only thing that happened was that the aunt rang her, and
which is just not.
Yeah,
it's not enough.
No,
I would rather that she had 3 or 4 more scenes where she's talking to people and someone says something that just makes her smile or gives her a thought or something like that. Not just her sat in front of that clock thinking.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scene where Tony Blair's cabinet is in a meeting with them discussing the arrangements for the funeral, and this is in a later episode, or this is in episode 4, I believe. And that scene is interrupted because Charles gets a call that William's gone missing. And this William's gone missing storyline, which I'm sure probably did happen. He probably did go wandering on the Balmoral estate to clear his head. Didn't turn up. He went missing for 14 hours, apparently. Quite understandably so. Probably sat under a tree and cried somewhere.
Yeah, we've all done that.
Yeah, but the problem is that how that's handled is just a bit naff. We're in quite an interesting dramatic scene, albeit in territory that we've seen before, where there's conflict between Parliament and the House of Windsor over how to handle the funeral. But I quite wanted to see these actors have that conflict because I've seen it with the other actors. I wanted to see, but what happens is Dominic West as Charles gets called out, your son's missing. The focus then goes on the search for the son. The search is relatively unsuccessful, but nobody seems too unduly worried. The drama of that is played down, and then he just kind of turns up, and Harry says, "Oh, he's come back," and everyone's like, "Oh, thank God." But it's really a kind of that for me felt like proper padding. It was, we can't repeat scenes in the Crown from the Queen, so let's focus on that night.
We're going to try and find another B plot to try and squeeze in.
And it was a B plot, and it was a B plot that actually could have been quite dramatic. The music could have been ramped up a bit.
Yeah, I'm not saying they did
more than just a couple of shots of Land Rovers roaming the estate and some dogs and whatnot. We could have had a little conversation between Harry and a groundsperson because he joined the search, and don't worry, we'll find him. What if my brother's gone too? That means now I'm the only one, and that means I'd have to be king. I'm not ready. You could have done.
There's a whole lot that you could do with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about overblowing it too much, but just a couple of lines here and there.
You could make that a decent 20 minutes.
Of
tension and action. It actually becomes a bit of an action movie, a bit like sort of, where they're doing the kidnapped kid in a network TV show where they're the line of people like walking along, that kind of thing, or where they're beating the bushes, that kind of thing. And I think that you're right. There's a lot they could do with something like that.
It could have been.
It writes itself
because you see, the impression it gives is people went out to look for him. They didn't find him. They all went back in the house because it was raining, and then he turned up a bit later, soaked through. Oh, don't worry, everyone, he's here. That to me is not believable. This is
it's probably true. The least believable things are probably true, but
I don't think so. I think that these people would have continued searching for him through the night if needs be,
probably
until he had been found, because he was a mentally vulnerable, not even a young adult teenager who had just found out his mother was dead less than 12 hours previous. So that, to me, it felt like A, it wasn't done right, B, it was padding, and C, the scene that we got taken away from was much more interesting. That annoyed me a bit. That's one of my big gripers. But episode 4 for me is an 8. The other 3 episodes are probably all around a 7. I think the first one is probably the weakest. But
I put it in as a 6. I thought it was all right. I given the scope of what the Crown can be, what we've seen the Crown to be, I think it's possibly one of the weaker episodes I've seen out of 5 series.
Yeah, it is one of the weaker episodes. I mean, I think personally for me, one of the weakest seasons was season 2. Apart from
like not a lot happened in season 2.
Well, yeah, exactly. Apart from the amazing Aberfan episode, which was incredible, which probably should have been 2 episodes. I mean, it was all sort of revolving around people stealing arts and the Queen Mother going to restore a ruined building with spending lots of money or something.
Yeah,
never explored again.
It was nice, and it was, I guess, one of the things I said in my sum up earlier, and no one listening to this is going to watch my review because I've said everything I'm going to say, but it feels like the last possibly 5 or 6 episodes total from the one I've watched and back a few seem to have taken a real sort of anti-monarchy skew in a way that the first ones didn't. Series. You know what I mean? They seem to have gone really hard against. It's like they're trying to make them look as bad as possible. as opposed to at the beginning, it was all about, this young woman who becomes queen, and it was all about building her up. But it seems like once she got to a certain age, they really flipped the narrative, and now she's the bad guy. And I don't think that was ever actually the case in real life.
She's the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, but I don't know why they decided to change the narrative around her, because no one believes it. No one believes she was actually the bad guy. She might have made some bad decisions, but it was never out of malice. I don't think.
Indeed. Well,
yeah.
we're gonna wrap it up there, because we're gonna get back into this on Saturday in more detail, and I'm also
definitely. I'm looking forward to it.
The show as a whole.
One thing I will say, and only because I caught this literally last week.
Yeah.
Have you seen A Royal Night Out?
I have. That's the semi-true story.
Semi-true story. No one knows if it's really true.
Of the Queen and Princess Anne.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, at the end of the war, they slip out
disappear off for a night,
disguise themselves as civilians and go and celebrate the jollies of VE Day.
Yeah, it's a we can either confirm or deny kind of story from.
I think the balance of probability is that it did happen. To what degree the film is accurate after that, who knows?
But I thought it was a really nice telling of that story, it's nice to. It's another 3 or 4 years back from when The Crown started, so I thought it fitted this conversation well. But anyway, if you hadn't seen it, I would have suggested you go see it. If anyone in the chat hasn't seen it, I recommend it. I think it's on Amazon.
Have you seen? I'm just going to get Royal Night Up now so people can see what we're talking about. Did you see The Great Escaper with Michael Caine?
Maybe.
I mean, the only reason I'm thinking about it is because it's also about somebody doing a runner to go and celebrate something they're not supposed to be celebrating, which is about the old guy doing a runner from his nursing home and going over to the D-Day celebrations. But that's not a bad little movie.
No, I haven't seen that one. That's new, isn't it?
This is a Royal Night Out for people that haven't seen it. Emily Watson plays the Queen mum. Rupert Everett plays the king. And then we have, I think it's Belle Powley, and I forget the name of the other actress, but she's very good. Sarah Gadon.
It's just a really nice film, and it's a surprisingly good film. I think it's fun. Again, I think everything from when they leave the castle is fictional, but I don't care. I kind of like. It's one of those. Like I said earlier, it's one of those fictions that you'd want to keep. I kind of like it.
I did a bit of digging into it, and the general consensus is they went to a posh private horse guards club and then came back again.
Yeah.
Without the approval of mum and dad.
They didn't go to an Irish pub, but
no,
I like to think that they did.
I mean, I don't think they could have. I don't think they would have been able to get in it because VE Day. Every pub would have been absolutely rammed with people.
Yeah, but pretty girls can get in anywhere. You know that.
So, Tim, thanks for popping on. Check out Tim's channel, which is Getting Nerds. Used to be Nerdly UK, but now he's got in with me. He thought Getting Nerds was better.
Yeah, it used to be TNTV reactions, but I just don't.
That's it.
I don't do reactions anymore, so it felt inappropriate. This is more of a standard nerd channel. Come along. Hopefully you enjoy the reviews. Please subscribe because I want to get to 200 subscribers by the end of the year. I'm
trying to get to 3,000 as soon as possible.
Well, yeah, I found you early. I found you at 700 and something. So
I appreciate that. Oh, that would have been a couple of years back.
No, it was about 18 months ago, I think.
Yeah.
Just before the drinker put out a note to say get him over 1,000, and then all of a sudden it went.
Yeah, I got to. That was definitely the drinker that got me over 1,000, and then it kind of slowly pushed up from there. And I had a couple of big interviews. I had a couple of really big interviews that helped.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you're growing because I think that you add a lot of detail that a lot of people don't get from other channels. So I think that your place in the pantheon is for the granular detail of this stuff, where most of the channels I get, sort of Mauler, who does 15-hour streams.
Indeed.
You know, I think that yours is a bit more technical.
Well, I like to talk about all the production
Yeah.
stuff because my channel is aimed at people that wish to work in the creative industry or have a creative thing they want to do, or maybe it's something that we can support and plug in the future.
Yeah.
And it's also all about helping other people and also steering people away from the bastards of this world.
Well, that too.
Of which there are many in the creative industry. There's quite a lot of piranhas at the bottom, let alone at the top. Bottom
there certainly
feeders.
is. Well, yeah, I spent
like
some
to
time
call
with them when I ran my film festival. And
Oh
so
my God! Which
I
film
got
festival was that?
I ran the Hyperdrive Film Festival in Hailsham. It was a sci-fi film festival.
Right,
I ran
right.
it for 3 years.
Yeah.
You
definitely would have. You definitely would have encountered a few cockwombles during that time.
I most certainly did. Although some of the best films I've ever seen came out of that, and I will send you some links because some of them are really enjoyable.
Well, we can even talk about some of them at some point.
Be really good actually. But yeah, let's pack this one up. But yeah, really great. And I'll catch up with you on Saturday. Ping me a link.
We will. I'll send you that in due course. The time for Saturday at the minute is a little bit flexible, but I think it's going to be around 10.
That's fine.
So I think around 10 o'clock. I've got RM from Positive Fandom coming on, and there may be a couple of others as well. And we're going to talk about first 4 episodes of season 1, likes and dislikes again in more detail.
Yeah, love it.
But also, I'm going to talk a bit about the show as a whole and what I expect to see in the last 4 episodes. And from the trailer, I'm not too sure that I'm going to be happy with this season overall. I'm a little bit worried. I think they're playing some things a bit too safe, but we'll see.
Game of Thronesy to me. I think.
Well, everybody's worrying about offending people now, of course, and we're living in a time where can't offend anyone, you know. So get John Cleeson to direct the final episode, is what I say.
His new show is brilliant, by the way. If you haven't watched it,
I have heard about it. I've not seen it yet. Anyway, that's it from me and Tim. Do check out his channel. We'll be back on Saturday. I'm also going to be probably doing a gaming stream on Sunday. That's entirely possible. I've got a couple more Best of British episodes coming up before Christmas. I'm hoping for a couple of interviews as well. I'll tell you about those as soon as they're booked. But I'm going to be doing Little Boy Blue. I'm going to be doing Hillsborough. I'm going to be doing Anne, which is the other mini series about Hillsborough. I'm going to be looking at a few of the true story British mini series, 4 Girls' Lives, etc. Some pretty hard hitting topics.
Yeah,
but
4 Girls is
4 Girls. But 4 Girls is effing brilliant. It's such a good
yeah,
drama.
but it's a
difficult topic, but
content warning
for true crime buffs. Buffs,
the best don't get me wrong. It's worth it. You don't get much better than that.
No, indeed. All right, thanks very much for tuning in, people, and we'll see you again real soon.
Thanks all.